Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Becca, and I'd like to thank all of my new subscribers and also thank you for the very kind comments that everyone leaves. I really appreciate them and I read them all, so thank you. And today I am sharing pages 1 and 2 of Roxy's Journal of Stitchery Volume 2, where the prompts were deer, wreath, and a tag. The feature was a tag. And before I start with my pages, I thought I would just quickly show the cover choice that I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this fabric for my cover. This is the book that I've chosen, and just because it fits the linen napkins that I've chosen for my signatures, so this size was perfect. So this image on this fabric I really love, and I think this would be a perfect cover. I'm not crazy about this up here. It's a little too blingy-ish for me. So I think I'll probably take that off and do something like that. And I will take some fabric and I will elongate this so that it wraps around the back of the book and then also under this front cover, and then we can cover those raw edges. So that's the choice for the front, and pardon me if I'm a little congested. I managed to catch my granddaughter and little grandson's virus, so I'm a little congested still, but feeling human again. And I've also chosen this for probably excuse me, I'm thinking the back cover, and unless I use it on one of the pages inside the book, but I think I'd like to use this on the back, and I'll choose a coordinating fabric to tie both of these together. But I love the vintage look of these, and it'll definitely tell what is in the book, that it's a Christmas book and also winter. There are some winter scenes on here that I think are so pretty. I haven't chosen the fabric yet that I'll use to tie those together, but I do love those images. So those are, I'm pretty sure. And because I've chosen these napkins for my signatures, and there's going to be 12 prompts, I really didn't want to have to make another signature. So I'm going to combine my title page along with the first prompts page. So for every signature, excuse me, for each of my signatures, there'll be 4 pages. So 1, 2, 3, and then the back 4. So that'll be one signature, and there will be 3 of them. So I'm going to combine my title page and my first prompt page. Just that'll be so much easier than making an extra signature. This is my title page and containing the first prompt, which is deer. And I got this image and this image from this Kath Holden fabric, and I love it. If anyone is looking for images for their book, this has some very nice images on it, and it's Christmas Fair by Kath Holden. It's a Moda fabric, so if anyone is interested, there are just some nice, very nice images on there. A Christmas Carol, little birds. So that's where these images came from, and I decided to use some rickrack around this image, and so I just stitched that down with some ivory pearl cotton, and then I did some French knots along the outside and the inside in the little V's of the rickrack, and I used a kind of a corally, light corally red color for the French knots on the outside, and sort of a cornflower blue on the inside. And then I added these little buttons. They are Lori Holt's cute little buttons is what she calls them, and I thought the colors were perfect. And I liked that cornflower blue. It seems to really pick up the blue in this image, which is really very pretty. I started stitching my pages together. My thread is hanging there. And so that's the stitching around. And I also did a little bit of gold stitching around the moon. And on this image, I had this gold fiber. Let's see if nope, I didn't bring it here. But I have this gold fiber. It's almost like a tube. I don't know exactly what it is. It came from a needlepoint kit, a Beatrix powder needlepoint kit of Peter Rabbit, and it makes a little pillow, but I thought I'll probably never do that. I'm not a needlepointer. And so I did take that thread out, and I love it around there. It kind of makes me think of a Christmas card. And I also did the same thing down here for this image. I used that gold fiber as well. And around the image that came from that Kath Holden fabric, I had some of this trim. It's a pretty sort of a silvery green trim. And so I put that around that image. And I used the same colors that I used up here. I used a coral, sort of that corally red color, and I just did sort of a star stitch in each of the centers of the flowers with just straight stitches with DMC. And then on the leaves, I just stitched a straight stitch on the leaves just to bring in the colors from the upper image to the lower here to coordinate and to tie these together. And then for the title part, I just drew some swirly, filigree kind of designs down here, and stitched this in an outline stitch or a stem stitch. And I also wrapped these filigree designs with a gold sulky thread. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the filigree and the lettering are stitched with one strand of DMC floss, and this again is that cornflower blue that I used over here. And I added a couple of I almost forgot the word, snowflake buttons on this little title portion. I thought that kind of went with the whole winter theme and Christmas theme. And I did a little bit of seed stitching, which made me think of snow. Did that throughout the page. So that is my title page and my prompt 1 all in one page, so I didn't have to add an extra page. And because I wanted to stitch right on the linen for these signatures, I love the linen. I think it's so pretty. And I didn't want to stitch on another page and then have to stitch it to this page. So when I was stitching on the linen, I noticed that it has a lot of give, kind of wiggly. So I actually stabilized it, and you can't see it right now. Well, maybe you can a little bit, because it is stabilized there. And this is SF101, and it's a fusible. I'm sorry, I said stabilizer. It's an interfacing, but it also stabilizes. And it's very nice, and it didn't change the hand at all, but it did give the page a little more body and stability when I was stitching. And I didn't do that till I was probably halfway through this page. So that is page 1. Let's see, okay. And this is the wreath prompt page. And when they said wreath, I immediately thought I would do a wreath on a door, because I generally always have a wreath. I always have a wreath on our doors in our house, and even our outbuilding I have a wreath on it. When my children were little, my husband and my mother and I would go hiking in the woods, and we would come upon grapevine, wild grapevine, and my husband would cut long pieces of it, and we'd take all the leaves off and weave wreaths out of them, and then we'd bring them home, and I'd decorate some for my mom and some for our house. And so that was my original thought, was to put a wreath on a door. And then, I don't know, I just thought, oh, I'd like a scene, something behind the wreath other than just a door, so I decided to do a window. And, pardon me, the fabric that I chose for the scene looking out of the window is this fabric, and I loved it because it just looks like a winter scene with the deer running through the fields and the trees. It just looks snowy to me, and so I thought that was very pretty. And so that is what I chose. Pardon me. That's what I chose to put behind the window. And so you can look out and you can see deer trotting through the fields here. And when I drew this window, did a little sketch for the idea, I was going to just do some boards with embroidery floss to look like shiplap or, you know, a cabin. And I just thought that might be a little dull. I wanted some more color. And so I decided to use this Kathy Schmidt's holly fabric, which to me kind of simulates wallpaper. So I put that down, and I cut my window fabric, and I stitched, this window is stitched with an outline stitch or a stem stitch all the way around, and the panes in the windows or the lights are stitched with stem stitch. So that gave me the window on top of that fabric. And then I decided I wanted some greenery above the window. Pardon me. Some greenery above the window, and I took some sort of a chunky yarn out of that same Beatrix Potter needlepoint kit, and it was a little bit too thick, so I decided to separate it down. It was 4-ply, and I separated it down to 2-ply, and I used that to sort of simulate some pine boughs up here. And then with some floss, I just made little, hopefully look like berries. Some have 2 wraps, 3 wraps, or 4 wraps, different size berries. So just to add a little greenery, I like to put garlands sometimes above a window. I think it looks pretty. And so then I thought I would put a strip of this red fabric down here to look like a carpet. And I just stitched some green borrow stitch on there to just give it a little extra color. And then I wanted to add something also in the room, so I chose this little girl, and she comes from this J. Wecker Frisch fabric, so I chose her from here, and this again has some really adorable little images on it, all nice choices for our journals. I also took her out. I almost put her on this page. was thinking of it, but hopefully I'll use her on another page. But on the back of the little girl, I fused some fusible interfacing because I don't mind if this frays at all, but I didn't want her little image to fray. She's just so adorable, and I wanted her to stay in nice condition. So I fused that on the back. I may actually do some fray check around the edges just to preserve her image. And I did some invisible stitching to stitch her down. I didn't put any other stitching on her. I didn't want to detract from her in any way. And also we're under a time constraint here with 2 pages per month. In the summer here in the United States, we're outdoors more so than indoors, although on these hot days I am very glad for central air. I'm not venturing out in the heat. So that was the little girl. And then I also decided to add a gift, a package here. And so I just chose some green fabric that I had, and I just with some floss did a little X on, or a cross that looks like ribbon, and I used that same gold fiber from the first page to make a bow. This package is needle turn. I thought I would do a little needle turn. I love to do needle turn, but I thought, oh, I'll just do that one. I didn't want that to really fray out. And because these pages are raw at the top, when I cut these napkins down, I left about 2/3 of the napkin, and then about 1/3 was cut off. So I knew that the top edge might need some sort of a trim. And so I chose this lace to put along the top edge. And this lace was about this wide, and this mirrored on the other edge of the lace. So I just cut the top edge off. It's a very pretty lace. I don't know if you can see how pretty that is. Which reminds me, I didn't mention that I also put a little lace on the top edge of this page as well, just to cover those raw edges. I didn't want anything too big to cover that deer image. And so that took care of the raw edge there. And then I decided to add these little charms, little snowflake charms. I kind of wish they were gold. I think they would have gone a little bit better. And I'm debating whether to put some rub and buff on them. I might take them off and put some rub and buff gold. But I thought that might look pretty staggered, 2 little snowflakes hanging down. And so I just did a chain stitch for the little stitch that they're suspended from. And with this silver thread, I don't even know what it's called. It's an oldie. I don't know if it's a sulky or not. And for the wreath, I decided to make my wreath out of batik fabric strips. Excuse me. And I ripped them fairly thin, probably about 1/4 inch, a little bit smaller than this. And I used 4 strips, and I just gathered them at the top. And then I just sort of formed a circle, brought them around to form a circle. And then I just began to take the ends and just sort of wrap it around. So that it looked kind of like a woven wreath. And then the ends When I came to the ends on mine, they weren't quite this long, but I just wrapped the edges and tucked them under. Tucked the edges under, and when I got a shape that I thought looked like a wreath, I just put this on the window, and then I stitched from the back and just took tacking stitches, tacked down where I wanted it a little flatter, and then maneuvered the fabric where I wanted it to be a little bit more raised until I was happy with the look of the wreath. And so that wreath is tacked on there that way, and I used some chunky beads, just a little glass bead or ceramic, I'm not sure, and I just grabbed a few out of my bead box and stitched these on. And I don't know, to me they look like they could be berries or apples or red ornaments, but I just wanted the color. I wanted that nice red color, cheery color on there. And I made a little satin ribbon bow. I always put bows on my wreaths. And I put a little charm here. It's a double candy cane. And I just liked the colors. I thought that looked very pretty with the red and the green. And so I think that's it. Yes, I think I covered everything. Oh, and on the wreath I also wrapped a little bit of gold sulky thread just to give it a little tiny bit of sparkle. Just coming around the wreath with that, so there's a little gold. So the more I think about it, these snowflakes have to be gold. I'm going to have to do something about that. That's going to bother me. But anyway, I think that's everything there on that page. And lastly, I have my tag, which I've never made a tag before, so I didn't even know where to begin. And so I just kind of winged it. I had this red barnboard fabric, and I used that for the base. And then I had a little piece cut from a table scarf that I used in volume 1. So I took that piece and I just folded it in half and tacked that down. And then I added this little piece of green fabric which has pine boughs and berries on it. And stitched that with a little running stitch in red. I added a charm, a stocking charm, and then this, I had just snipped this little tiny piece out of some lace that I have, and this looked like mistletoe to me a little bit. And this little tree I took out of this fabric, which I had put on the back, and I just cut one of these little trees out. And I stitched this fabric on the back to make it just to cover my stitching here. And I was going to put a rivet in the top, but I didn't. I may still do that, but for now I use this little bulb pin. Now I'm not sure where we're exactly supposed to put this tag, if it's supposed to go on our page somewhere, or if there will be more tags and there'll be a page for tags. I'm not really sure. But so anyway, that is my tag. That is done. This virus gave me a lot more time to stitch, so that was nice. I would have normally been outside. So that is where both of my pages stand so far. I know the next prompt is Christmas tree. I have some ideas, but I'm not sure where I'm going yet with any of those ideas. And I just wanted to quickly share a little tip. I know I get some comments from newbies who are just beginning to slow stitch or embroider, and I just wanted to share this easy method for separating your threads, like on the lettering here where I use just one strand of thread. I just wanted to show an easy way to separate. And if you just tap the top of your thread, it separates your fibers, and you can just pull, and it just comes out so easily, very effortlessly. And if you want a second piece of floss, just again tap, and just pull your thread out. So that would give you 2 strands of thread. And it's just as easy as that. They separate out very easily. So that's kind of nice. And also, if you wanted, there's 4 left here, so if you wanted to stitch with 2 threads, if you just tap again, and if they look like they've separated evenly, just begin pulling. And you don't really need to use your mouth or, you know, need a third hand or anything. If you just keep pulling, generally they will separate very easily, and you have all of your plies of thread that you want to work with. So I thought I would just pass that along. I was very happy to learn that little trick. I've been using it for a long time, and it really, really does make it easy to separate your threads when you're stitching. Every so often when you're separating, like if you have 6 and you're trying to separate 3 and 3, every so often it may catch, but generally no. Generally it really works nice and smoothly. So that's it. That's where I am so far on my Roxy's journal. I've got everything almost stitched together. I just have to do that top edge. That's what that thread is there. But that is so far where I am. I'm ready for the Christmas tree, and I'm not quite sure what direction I'm going to go in, but I'll get to working on that soon. So thank you very much for stopping by to see where I am in my journey of this Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, and I hope you're enjoying your stitching and your summer so far. Thank you so much, and talk to you next time. Bye for now.